Hi, this is Christine Beckwith coming to you from the MBA annual convention here in Washington, D.C., and I'm super excited to have another episode of Power Women with Class, sponsored by Class Appraisal. And I could not be more excited to have Kristy Fercho here, the president of Flagstar Mortgage. We are going to learn a lot in this episode, so let's get started. Hi.
Hi, how are you? I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, we are so thrilled. I just saw her speak as a keynote at NAMBA, and she moved the room. She is really definitely an icon in our business. I'm super. You're my idol. I look at what you've done, and it's been amazing. So let's talk about that. Let's go back to the beginning of Kristy's career and tell the audience watching, what was that year like for you?
Yeah. Well, I have a very non-traditional entree into the mortgage business. I actually started right out of college selling hospital supplies. So I was at Baxter Healthcare for 6 years. I went to Pepsi for 8 years, all in human resources. And then I made my way to Fannie Mae in 2002. I came in as human resources for the single family business. And what was really powerful, the head of the single family business then, a guy by the name of Lou Hoyes, in my interview, he drew on a napkin kind of what he needed the single family business to look like kind of 5 years from now. And he said he needed an HR partner to help him transform that business. And I knew what it would take for me to be able to do that successfully is really immerse myself in the business and learn it in a different way. And so we were successful in actually doing that and changing the single family business as, strategic partners really alongside with him and doing that. And then in 2007, 5 years later, he gave me an opportunity to move over and actually run the business. So out of an HR position, in a line position, which really is a very rare shift that people don't often make. So my entree into running the single family business really came in April of 2007. And so I tell people, I couldn't spell mortgage. The only thing I knew about mortgage is that I had one when I started. But it's been an extraordinary, now 18-year journey in mortgage. And I've just really loved every minute of it.
And what a way. I mean, none of us entered it easily, and it all seems like it came sideways. And I think the thing that, I draw on your story is, that you came in and you highlighted, some traits, talent, executive level prowess, and they saw it. They saw that talent, and they gave you the shot. So at that point, you have your shot, and you're able to get in there, and you're able to do amazing things, and the rest is history. And you've made a name for yourself. You've made a name for Flagstar. You've elevated their brand, and you certainly put yourself out there as a woman that all women in the mortgage industry can follow, a 2% female executive. So that's just stunning. I know sometimes you don't even believe that you've done that yourself. Yeah. What, when you look back, would you tell the audience is your most proud moment?
Yeah. So I have two. So the first one really was, I talked about that transition out of HR into the business. And I remember it was my first big executive meeting, and I was going in with our CEO was going to join me, and the head of the single family business was going to join me, and they both had to bail out at the last minute. And now this is my first time going in with, I'd been 4 months in the job. I didn't really have the business experience, and I was so nervous. And I sit down, I won't tell you who it was with, but I sit down with the CEO of this bank, and he says, I'm wondering why I'm meeting with an HR person that's running the business. And, of course, my heart sank. But what was really extraordinary about it is it was supposed to be a 45-minute meeting. It went an hour and a half. And when we finished the meeting, he got up and he shook my hand and he said, I see why they put you in this position. He said, it's going to be a pleasure to work with you. Yeah. And he said, it was a great conversation, and I look forward to working with you. And it was one of those moments where I got in my car and, I breathed a sigh of relief. And it was it gave me the confidence that I really could do this. I could really transition. And then my second one is probably a really big public one. When I was with Fannie Mae coming through the crisis, we had, obviously all these rep and warrant and repurchase disputes.
Yes.
And I think the crowning moment on that was settling after 24 months the Bank of America kind of outstanding resolution, which was $13 billion.
Yeah,
So
That's a lift
it was-
off your back.
Yeah.
Nothing
So
minor.
It was kind of an extraordinary
That puts
kind
in
of crowning
perspective.
achievement. So,
That puts in perspective. Like, think
yeah.
about that. Like, we go to work every day. Everybody has a different job description. But when you're responsible for clearing the ledger on $13 billion,
Yeah.
it's not a minor undertaking.
And it was a hard time because it was one of those, how do you maintain relationships and yet do something really hard and uncomfortable?
You said that in both of your stories, though, and I want to pause for a minute in something that you just said. Like in the first story that you were talking about, you touch upon something that actually in this series women have said almost consistently in every single episode, and that is that they had a moment where they were not recognized for the actual job that they were doing. I've entered many rooms. I can remember being a regional manager and going into one of my 125 person offices that had about 100 salespeople in it, and they thought I was the marketing manager of the company.
Right.
I still get that. They think I'm an account executive. The vice president title for me is overused in our industry.
Sure.
I feel like I'm walking around defensively.
Yeah.
So it is. You had to eloquently go in a serious situation where you're in an interview, for an hour and a half, and you have to migrate from what can be an insulting kind of statement with class, without sounding defensive, and go from that point all the way to winning the person over, and then ultimately having that person stand up and shake their hand and say something amazing. So great points that she just made. Moving on, if you had to give advice to people, not just women. I always think that we have a lot to say to everybody. If you have to give advice to people in the next 24 months, what is that advice?
So my advice is, one, know your value, right? Just really understand kind of what differentiates you from others, but then from your company, what's your point of value that you can bring a unique value proposition other than what others are offering in the market, right? What's going to differentiate you? And then the second one I would say is just be fearless. I mean, it is a stunning market right now, and it's really challenged. And I think sometimes when things get hard, the easy answer is to retrench and to retreat. And it's, how do you just lean into it and really be bold and put yourself out there? And so, being fearless right now in a market like this, and by knowing your value and what your value proposition is, it allows you to really lean into this challenge versus retreating. And I think it's when you can do that, that's where people will win.
Yeah, so many times they take the plan and they tear it apart, and they throw it away instead of sticking with it.
Or you start reacting to what's happening in the market, and it's hard to do, right? We're all really challenged around that.
That's good advice.
So it's hard to do, and I argue all the time with my CEO and executive team, but it's
it's what we need to do.
Yeah,
it's great. Sticking power, staying power.
So
tell me, I know you're also, as a businesswoman, we wear so many hats, right? We do it all. We really have so many things we're involved in, but we're philanthropists. We're great philanthropists. And we represent a lot of paying it forward and a lot of charity, and I know you're greatly involved with one. Do you want to share what you do?
I would. My passion is Habitat for Humanity.
Awesome.
So, I volunteered in college. It was like the team building thing in college, and so over the years, I've just had the pleasure of volunteering, and then most recently, I was the president of the board for Habitat Humanity for Chicago. And so it's such a nice tie to putting people in homes. I think we have the unbelievable privilege of being able to put people in homes and help them realize the American dream. And Habitat for Humanity takes that to another level, an interest-free mortgage. But when you work side by side with the person to build their home and see the pride and see the commitment, it just changes lives. And
it really does. Such
mine.
a huge, and I've known that brand for so long, and I've been involved in a number of local builds, and it's just an amazing cause, and it's such an emotional story to see the families that it impacts. So that is awesome. Brings us to our last question. And you have success in your DNA, and I have so many people that say, I took risks at certain points in my career. We all had to get where we are. We know these jobs didn't get handed to us. We had to work hard to get there. If you had to define success, or the top point that you think defines success for you, giving that advice to other women seeking success, what are you going to tell them to focus on?
Yeah, so I tell them two things. One, define the success for you, not the success that's defined by others, because everyone has a different definition of success, and so you have to pick the success that really works for you. And the second, and I've lived by this my whole career, is there is no such thing as failure. To me, failure is not an option, but it is, really understanding there's different ways of doing things. And so when you fail at something, you just learned a different way to do it or the way not to do it. And so that's really helped, because then you don't get caught up in, this didn't work out and really beat yourself up over it. It's you to find the success for you, and then we can all be successful. But for me, it's also not defined by, what my title is or my position is. It's really about happiness and the people that I've touched and served.
Balance and how you pay it forward and how you connect with people. And it's no surprise why you're so successful. So thank you for honoring me, for honoring Mortgage News Network, for being on our first season. I couldn't think of someone better. I know I'm going to see you out there in the circuit. Absolutely. We want to thank Kristy Fercho from Flagstar Mortgage for being with us. This is Christine Beckwith with Mortgage News Network and another episode of Power Women with Class. Thank you.
The American dream lives on for homeowners all across the country. At Class Valuation, we help lenders get more borrowers into the home of their dreams. Through innovation designed to reduce turn times and ensure accuracy, we help lenders exceed borrower expectations, so that American dream lives on.
This is Mortgage News Network.